This is Radio Health Journal. I'm Reed Pence. This week, new thinking on the best way to survive an active shooter.
If you just sit there, there's a higher likelihood that you're going to be shot and potentially killed.
Run, hide, or fight when Radio Health Journal returns.
I'm Nancy Benson, host of Radio Health Journal. If you enjoy listening to Radio Health Journal, you'll also like our sister show, Viewpoints, which covers a wide array of topics from education to history to the environment. Here's a preview of what they're covering this week on Viewpoints.
This week on Viewpoints.
People bring you down saying, oh, you're too small and all that, but you're never too small. Because there are guys that are smaller than me that play football and do amazing.
Why are we still so adamant on what sports boys and girls can play? Then,
in many ways, we know more about space than we do about our oceans and certainly about underwater caves.
Jill Heinerth is uncovering these secrets one dive at a time. I'm Marty Peterson.
And I'm Gary Price. These stories in depth this week on your public affairs magazine, Viewpoints.
Listen to Viewpoints on your favorite radio station and subscribe and listen to shows anytime on Apple Podcasts and Google Play.
Mass shootings used to be extremely rare enough that we remembered the names of places like Columbine and Sandy Hook. But mass shootings aren't rare anymore. FBI statistics show that in 2017 and 2018, there was an active shooter incident averaging every other week, resulting in 223 deaths and more than 700 injured. On the average day in America, 9 schools are locked down due to gun violence or the threat of it, according to an analysis by the Washington Post. Still, for a lot of people, things didn't really change until a month ago, when a shooter at an El Paso Walmart killed 22, and less than a day later, one outside a Dayton, Ohio bar killed 10 more. Now experts say people are convinced it can happen anywhere.
People are scared. These are happening very quickly, and having 2 back-to-back within 13 hours have really rattled the nation. I will say schools are starting to feel fearful as well because we seem to have a lot of school shootings. I'm getting that feeling from my students, from my fellow faculty and my fellow staff members. So I do get that feeling that people are very scared and very worried about being in a place where the next one of these things may happen.
That's Dr. Cheryl Lero Johnson, Associate Professor of Criminal Justice at Xavier University and author of some of the only peer-reviewed research into how to survive an active shooter incident. She says training to deal with such an incident should alleviate some of the fear of them, in the same way we train for fires, tornadoes, and earthquakes. But Johnson says some preparation goes too far, like the bulletproof backpacks you may have seen for sale.
We don't want kids to feel like they're going into a fortress at schools, that they're not safe at all times. Again, these are very statistically rare events that happen. We don't equip kids with fire extinguishers when they go to school. I think the backpack is going a little too far, but I do understand why some parents have peace of mind sending that with their child to school.
Still, surviving an active shooter takes planning ahead. You may feel like these incidents can happen anywhere, but that's not really true. And the first step to surviving a shooter is to not be where they're likely to attack.
It's true that they could be almost anywhere, but where they won't be is in locations that have too few targets. So to understand why this is so, one has to understand the purpose of individuals who commit these attacks.
That's Dr. Park Dietz, founder and president of the Threat Assessment Group in Newport Beach, California, which works with some of the world's largest companies to protect against shooters and other incidents.
The overriding motive for all of these attacks is immortality, the desire for immortality through the press. And that won't occur if one commits suicide in one's shed, and it won't occur if one simply kills one's closest friend or family member. It requires finding strangers and generating a newsworthy event to become immortal. The most vulnerable locations are those with large crowds because it is free and popular and everyone wants to be there at the same time to do this thing. Free concerts, parades, festivals.
But who's realistically going to completely avoid going out on the off chance a shooter will show up? And we still need to go shopping and to work and to school. So we still need to know what to do if the worst should happen. Johnson says today there are two schools of thought on the best way to survive. One has been around a long time. Lock down and hide and wait for the police to come.
What proponents of traditional lockdown will say is to get in a hard corner. So it's a corner where you're not visible and try to kind of disguise yourself from the gunman. The problem I have with traditional lockdown, particularly in school settings, is a lot of school shootings happen during the school day. And by turning off the lights and hiding in a corner, you're not really fooling the person that you're not there.
Johnson led a study using live simulations carried out in 13 different locations around the country, looking at lockdown and hide strategies in both classroom-sized and larger rooms like a cafeteria or library. Then her team compared lockdowns to a multiple option strategy that's been nicknamed Run, Hide, or Fight.
We found that in the traditional lockdown approaches, there was a very high percentage of people that were shot, and the time to resolution of those events were much, much higher than when these multi-option approaches were used. And we found those same results in the large open areas as well.
In the multiple option strategy, escaping is the first choice. But that takes a little preparation as well, and Dietz and Johnson say you should do it automatically wherever you go.
The mental preparation part becomes a habit in the same way that people who are thoughtful about how to escape a theater during a fire think in advance, where is the exit? What would I do if a fire were to happen here? The same exercise applies. What would I do if there were suddenly shooting here? What are the exit paths? Where is there cover or concealment? How would I protect the loved ones who are with me?
If you go to a mall, if you go to a restaurant, there's always back doors where the kitchen is, or always back door where the loading area or the stock room is. In an active shooter situation, those aren't employees only. You can run through those and get out that way. So be aware of your exits. You see this a lot of times at concerts and sporting events. Humans are creatures of habit, so we go out the entrance that we came in. So just as you're walking around a venue, maybe look around and say there's exits in other places. And again, this isn't just for active shooter safety. This is also for fire safety. God forbid there was a fire in one of these places. It's nice to know where your exits are in those areas.
If you're in an open area and gunfire rings out, your options may be much more limited. If there's no cover and you can't lock down and hide, just run.
You run in a zigzag pattern. It just makes you a hard dynamic target. So it's much harder to shoot someone in a zigzag pattern. But if you can't run in a zigzag and you're in a large crowd, just run, get away. I would say is if you can get away, fleeing is an option, go ahead.
And if you can grab a little cover, do it.
The most important first step is to put something between oneself and the attacker. Ideally, something that isn't penetratable by whatever the weapon being used is. But even not being visible is better than being visible and out in the open. If one is within a building and the attacker is outside the building, securing the building and keeping the attacker out is the first best solution.
Barricading is the second choice in the multiple option strategy, to be used if you don't think you can escape. But barricading is more than simply locking down.
Instead of just relying on a locked door to protect yourself between a shooter, to protect you between the shooter and yourself, put something in front of that door, put desks, chairs, tables, anything that's environmentally available to you, put in front of that door, make it much more difficult for this individual to gain access to you. And then the last option is to actively resist. So that can be fight, counter, defend, any of those different things that those programs call it. And that is if you're face to face with a gunman, fight for your life. That can mean throwing something at them, at their face to disrupt their OODA loop. That could be, swarming the individual and trying to take that gunman down, but fight for your life, because if you just sit there, there's a higher likelihood that you're going to be shot and potentially killed.
The thought of going after a shooter unarmed may be terrifying. Those who train in ALICE programs or others that teach the multiple option defense say that you shouldn't try to be a hero, But when you're face to face with a gunman who's already shown no hesitation to shoot, you're probably out of options.
Throw something if you can, throw it at their face, at their head. Just like we have biological instincts, the shooters also have biological instincts. So if something is coming at their face, they're going to duck or they're going to move, and that can mess up the aim. That also can mess up their concentration, right, of what they expected to happen. A lot of times these shooters expect, because they're there with the gun, everybody's going to listen to them, and that can disrupt that kind of mindset a little bit. So throw them at their head. Some of these programs teach people how to swarm. And so how to take people down by grabbing their extremities, their arms and their legs, and kind of pulling them down to the ground. So it's really what you're comfortable with.
That's a lot different than hiding and hoping the police will arrive. But when they do, it's likely to be a lot quicker than it was 20 years ago. Johnson says the prescription for police response to an active shooter has also changed. It's also much more aggressive than it used to be.
At Columbine, they formed a perimeter, they waited for SWAT, and people died waiting for that response. After Columbine, they moved to what was called a quad response. So the first 4 officers went into a building and engaged with the shooter. And again, they found that took too much time. And so by the time Sandy Hook happened, they had moved into what we call solo engagement. So the first officer on the scene responds to the gunman. And there's multiple ideas behind that. One, the longer the shooting goes on, the more people who are going to be hurt or killed. 2, if the perpetrator is concentrated on the police, they're not concentrated on potential victims, right? So that has changed over the course of the years. And then luckily in Dayton, you saw firsthand what that meant. That these responding officers were phenomenal in Dayton.
Johnson says in Dayton, officers saved countless lives with their immediate response, taking down the gunman in 32 seconds. But that brings up another point about surviving an active shooter. Dietz says the police response can be dangerous too if you don't think about it.
When law enforcement respond, their goal is to find and contain and neutralize the assailant. They are not there to save people who've been injured or to treat them or drag them to safety. They're there to hunt down and neutralize the assailant. That's the first mission. Rescuers will follow to do more. But as they're hunting the assailant, they are on a mission, and it can be scary. They may deploy tear gas. They may have multiple weapons. They may point weapons at you. So the most important single thing to do is to put your hands in the air with your fingers spread so they see you do not have a weapon. Carry nothing.
All of this advice could be life-saving. However, Dietz says the very best way to survive an active shooting incident is for it not to happen in the first place. Active shooter response training is important, but he says everyone should also have training in how to identify family, friends, or coworkers who are headed toward a mental health crisis. Maybe they're depressed, suicidal, and angry, focusing on someone to blame. Reporting it to someone who can do something about it is the first step. Dietz says major corporations are perhaps decades ahead of police in how they react. So if it's a coworker, your company's HR may be the first place to turn. But when it's too late for that, survival is all that matters. Johnson says it's unfortunate we need to research this at all, but shooters have become a public health issue. And she says we still need to know more about how to increase the odds of making it home safe. I'm Reed Pence.
Coming up, fighting off stress on campus when Radio Health Journal continues.
If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, please call this toll-free number right now. 800-279-0419. That's 800-279-0419. By calling your addiction team, you're taking the first steps to recovery. Don't fight addiction alone. Their advisors are ready to take your call. Your future is still a bright place. The help you need could be one call away. 800-279-0419. That's 800-279-0419. This call is completely confidential, and if you have private insurance, there could be little to no cost to you. Even if you've already been to treatment, give us a call. There's no need to let addiction ruin your life. Take the first step now. Call your addiction team at 800-279-0419. That's 800-279-0419. Make the free call now. 800-279-0419. Your addiction team is a third-party advertiser for various treatment centers and placement networks. Individual results will vary. Visit youraddictionteam.com/terms for more information.
Paid non-attorney spokesperson paid for by the Sentinel Group. Attention military vets and current soldiers who served between 2002 to 2016. Have you or a loved one suffered hearing loss or tinnitus after serving or while serving in the U.S. Armed Forces? You may be entitled to compensation. 3M, the manufacturer of earplugs made for combat, recently paid the government $9.1 million to settle a False Claims Act case for knowingly selling these defective earplugs for over a decade. Specifically, the United States argued that the manufacturer knew their earplugs were too short for proper insertion into users' ears, and that the earplugs could loosen and therefore didn't perform properly or reduce noise the way they should have. If you or a loved one suffered hearing loss or tinnitus after serving or while serving in the U.S. Armed Forces, you need to choose the right legal team that has the experience, support staff, and resources to seek the most compensation for your injuries. Call the Sentinel Group now for more information and a free case review. Call 800-655-6458. 800-655-6458. That's 800-655-6458.
What are you going to do with your old car? You can try selling it, you could junk it, or you can donate it to Heritage for the Blind. Your car will be towed away for free, and your donation is tax deductible. Just call 1-800-835-1478. Heritage for the Blind accepts cars, vans, trucks, and boats. It doesn't matter if your vehicle runs or not. It will be towed away for free, and you'll be supporting those that need help. Heritage for the Blind is a nonprofit organization that helps the visually impaired live fuller lives. Call right now to donate your car, and as a special thank you, you'll receive a free 3-day vacation voucher to over 50 locations. Call Heritage for the Blind right now. Call 1-800-835-1478. Donating is easy, and your vehicle is towed away for free. Plus, you'll get a free vacation voucher for donating. Call now, 1-800-835-1478. That's 1-800-835-1478.
Thank you for listening to Radio Health Journal, a production of MediaTrax Communications. If you enjoyed this broadcast, please support our show by subscribing, sharing it with a friend, and leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. You can find more Radio Health Journal stories about health, science, and technology on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, and RadioHealthJournal.net. Also, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Radio Health Journal.
Coming up next week on Radio Health Journal.
We in Canada didn't cause that problem. We can't fix it for you. It's a made-in-America problem, and it's a made-in-America solution. This is not a good idea, and it's not how you treat a good neighbor.
Behind the plan to cut American drug costs through the wholesale import of Canadian drugs.
Then one expert's fix for the United States healthcare system.
There's really no other area of our life where we make purchase decisions of products or service with almost no visibility into what it costs. It's really absurd.
All that and more on Radio Health Journal.